Call the meeting to order. Start with our pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
We'll start off with public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to tell us what they think?
Or not.
Now we'll move on to action items. First resolution. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move the CRW Board adopt resolution number 12, 2014, appointing Carol Bright, Chief Financial Officer, as the CRW Budget Officer for fiscal year 2014-15.
Second?
Carol.
This is a standard procedure that we do every year. I have been budget officer for the last few years. The board does have options of appointing someone else, and this one's pretty simple and straightforward, so if there's any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Any comment? Any questions? Oh,
Are you a CPA?
No, I'm
Thank you
not.
very much.
thank you. Any comment or any questions other than that?
I have none.
Okay, we'll start off with a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Motion carries 4-0.
That was a roll call.
Oh, it was roll call, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
Commissioner Hoverson,
Aye.
Commissioner Carney is absent, Commissioner Sterling,
No.
and Commissioner McNeil,
Aye.
and Commissioner Soa.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
Number two, under action items, proposed budget calendar.
Yeah, so
Carol.
this part is where we talk about the timing for the budget committee meetings. We do need to find a couple of more committee members. I have heard from Mr. Russell who would like to re-up, so that will be presented to the board probably at the February meeting. But right now, we're talking about the calendar. And last year, we held our meetings during the month of April and May, and we had them on the Thursday nights that we didn't have board meetings. And that's what we've presented in the board calendar. So it's certainly an option, but up to the board and their availability. So we have proposed meetings on Thursdays in May, 3 meetings scheduled to take care of budget committee business. Options would be to meet another day of the week, of any of those weeks. My staff will be ready to present a budget, the early part of May. So again, this is something up for board discussion.
And we have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to acknowledge the proposed budget calendar as agreed upon for fiscal year 2014-15 budget.
Second?
Thank you. Any public comment? Any questions?
I have one. How many meetings do you think we'll need?
Last year, we had 2 meetings,
Right.
and that seemed to get us where we needed
Yeah.
to get.
Okay.
We're only required to have 1, but I feel it's really hard to get through all the material and have everybody understand the proposal in 1 meeting. So I think 2 is optimal, but we could have up to 3. We have had 4 in the past.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
I guess if just so the public, I think my preference would be to have one relatively early, just like it out, give the public as much time to look over stuff rather than to have consecutive week meetings. People don't have time to digest all the stuff. So if we get 2 or 3 weeks between the 2 meetings, I think gives our constituents the best
Right.
shot at figuring out what's going on.
What we proposed on the calendar is a meeting the first Thursday in May, which is really early. The next week is a regular board meeting.
Right.
And then a second meeting the Thursday after that. We will have the budget document, or we will do everything we possibly can, and we have been successful in the past of having the budget document to all of the budget committee members a week prior to the meeting. And at the time that we make it available to the budget committee members, we also put a proposed budget on our website, and we have a copy of the proposed budget in the office available for any citizens that want to come in and take a look at what we've got out there.
So we wouldn't adopt the budget until the June meeting, right?
That's right. The
Right,
budget
okay.
committee approves it, and then we'll come back to the board. I'm, again, proposing that we have the budget hearing at the June meeting
Okay,
and adopting it at that time, but the board, again, can choose to pick another day and have a special meeting. We have to notice it if you're gonna actually adopt the budget.
and so then they'd have 3 opportunities in May, right? The 2 budget meetings and a board meeting to give us input, and then we could, okay, that
And
works.
in June, yes.
No more comments. We'll have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Henderson,
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil,
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling,
Aye?
and Commissioner Soar.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 3, thank you, Carol. Number 3, we have Adam here to work us through this terrible change
This was timed.
order. Can I have a motion?
Yes, I move the board approve change order number 1 to the contract with Oregon Electric Construction Incorporated for a 120-day time extension for construction phase services under the Emergency Power and Electrical Upgrade Project.
Second.
We have a motion
Second.
and second. Go ahead, Adam.
Thank you, President. We'll keep it pretty brief. As I presented last month at the project update item for the generator project, due to a number of issues with mainly the design phase, but also through construction, we experienced a few delays on the project that moved us a little further along on the calendar than we hoped to be. However, as you can see in the write-up, this is only a time extension to the project. The contractor has indicated that they're still envisioning completing the project within the guaranteed maximum price.
So, I do have a question. Is extension needed for design work, or because they're having delays from the supplier?
Basically because we started construction later than we had forecasted.
Oh, I see, so was it our fault that we were,
Pardon?
was it CRW's fault for starting late, or was it their fault for starting late?
The design phase took longer than we had planned, and the majority of that was due to the contractor having to take longer time to evaluate the existing system, the existing treatment plant, the electrical system, the needs that were present there to address through the design that they were responsible for.
My question, oh, go ahead, Greg.
No, please, sir, go ahead.
My question was, how much more is it gonna cost?
At this point, as I mentioned, the contractor has indicated that they're not foreseeing exceeding the guaranteed maximum price, which was established in the contract. They're indicating that through other cost savings measures that they've been able to realize through construction, that they will be within budget.
Madison?
Excuse me for being repetitive, Adam, but I look for you to reassure the ratepayers that the employees are in fact in a position of safety due to the various switches and internal electrical things that needed to be upgraded. Has that been taken care of, or are they still on a very safe plan when they need to enter into those electrical switches that have been turning on and off?
Once the project is completed, which the component of it that you're referring to is the electrical upgrades, which will occur to the majority of the outdated equipment inside the treatment plant and the local pump station, then all of the safety concerns that were presented a couple of years ago in our studies will be addressed.
So essentially, they're still having to be extremely cautious when they're around this switching equipment at this time.
That's correct, and they will still need to be cautious even after the construction is completed because of the high and medium voltage that they're dealing with. Most of the risks will be addressed by the result of upgrading the equipment, but being that it is
Right.
high voltage or medium voltage
Right.
equipment. There is
You're,
still-
you're not saying that the switches are arbitrarily going to switch on and off as they have been, as a history of them doing that when the upgrade occurs, is that correct?
That's true.
Good, thank you very much, Adam.
Any more questions?
Yes, one more. 120 days is a long time, and this has been going a long time. Are they really gonna need 120 days, or are we just throwing it out there a lot farther than we need to?
I like to be conservative.
Okay.
And they're forecasting right now being substantially complete by the end of March.
Okay.
Okay, so, but putting, the original final completion date was end of this month. So extending that on, considering, you know, the unknown, giving us a couple of months basically to wrap up the project, finish any punch list items that may be present. We're trying to address the majority of those through construction. And part of that is the great consulting help we have through kind of engineering as assisting with that. But the answer is no, we probably will not need full 120 days to finish work. But again, I like to be conservative and having that time rather than have to come back later and say I need another month or another 2 months is the way I prefer to approach it.
Please don't come back again.
That's
I
my
won't
goal.
be there. I think it's, my personal feeling is they've had enough time.
I
So,
agree.
I mean, I think this is not that hard a job, so.
Question? Go ahead, Greg.
Adam, this is just a suggestion. Considering Commissioner McNeil's background in regards to owning an electrical service company here in the county and being an electrician, perhaps you would be able to afford him with a tour. Most of the commissioners that have come on staff over the last 5 years have had the opportunity to go through the plant, see the switches that you specifically are concerned about and will be upgraded, and then subsequently Commissioner McNeil and the residents that constituents that he represents would be able to be rest assured then that this is not a needless delay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any more questions? Now we'll have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed, no.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
Commissioner Saw?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Number 4, Mather Reservoir Site Drainage Repair. Adam.
Mr. Chairman, do you wish a motion before we proceed?
Yes. Go ahead.
I move the board approve and authorize the board president's signature of the notice of acceptance for the Mather Reservoir Site Drain Repair Project CIP 135151, which establishes the project completion date as January 9th, 2014.
Second.
Adam.
Thank you. Again, I'll keep this pretty brief. As you recall, this project was declared as an emergency project back in September by resolution. The project went very well. The work was completed in a matter of days. I think 1 day for the main construction piece and then 2 days for wrapping up and cleaning up the project. The drain line was repaired to our specifications. There were no major issues that we found in the excavation of the fill material. And contractor did a great job, under budget, under our projected budget, and under the original contract that we executed with them. So, a good job.
Any more questions?
Always nice to see them coming under budget.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there a member of the public wishing to say anything? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed, no.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling?
Aye.
And Commissioner Saw?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
We're going to action item number 5, code of conduct. Do I have a motion?
This is the first reading, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, this is first reading?
Yes, sir.
Can we have a motion to read it by title only?
So moved.
Mr. President, members
We
of the
have
board.
Just,
Second.
I'm sorry.
I'm coming.
This is ordinance 02-2013, An ordinance of the Clackamas River Water Board of Commissioners establishing a code of conduct for commissioners and authorizing imposition of sanctions. And whereas the Clackamas River Water CRW is a municipal domestic water district organized under 264, which among other powers authorizes CRW to do all acts that which may be requisite, necessary, or convenient in carrying out the objects of the district or exercising the powers conferred upon it by ORS 264. And whereas CRW has been required to expend in excess of $100,000 as direct or indirect funds result of the conduct of elected officials acting contrary to the interests of CRW, thereby creating unnecessary liability and further risk of exposure. And whereas ORS 264.410 establishes the power and authority of the district to be exercised by a board of 5 commissioners, which implies the power to establish the expectations of conduct of those 5 commissioners. And whereas over the course of the last several years, CRW has determined that the law relating to the actions of elected officials is inadequate to establish a high degree of professionalism, decorum, and respect for others. And whereas the CRW board has determined it is necessary to adopt a code of conduct applicable to the activities of elected commissioners serving CRW.
Thank you. Any public comment? Barbara?
Barbara Camper. I was glad to see this being addressed and specifically in the form of an ordinance, because that's a much more permanent thing in a place like this than a resolution. I did have some concerns about some things in this ordinance, which I sent to a couple of people, and I was surprised. I haven't seen heard any discussion of some of those. My first concern was the code of conduct, page 1, item 2, by acceptance of the office through swearing in of the oath, the commissioners accept this. I don't see how this states it's retroactive. It sounds to me like only people who are sworn in after this ordinance would be bound by it. Do you have a legal opinion on that?
May I respond, Mr. Chairman?
Can respond.
Okay. I did receive your email. I printed it out. I went through this item by item. And since this is a first reading, we'll be able to make corrections to it. And several of your suggestions on language and syntax are well received as far as I'm concerned, as well as punctuation and that sort of thing. So the issues that you raised in the email to me will be addressed by the board. And your point in particular, I sort of margin wrote down the idea of including all current commissioners as part of the language. So.
Okay. I'm not so concerned about the grammatical things, though they do make an impression on people reading it.
Absolutely.
But there are a couple of other places where, well, I noted there that the wording of a very long sentence is not very clear. So that's all I have to say.
It's a working project. Process.
And thank you for doing this. There's no guarantee it's going to end certain behaviors, but at least it does put people on notice. Thank you.
Any more questions? I have one. I think this is probably something to be addressed to our attorney between now and the second reading. As I read it, if somebody on the commission contacts our attorney without board approval or without the general manager's approval, they would be eligible for, not eligible, but subject to sanctions by the board.
That is correct, Mr. President.
And you can guarantee that, or you think our lawyer needs to look at it?
No, because really what this code of conduct, as it's been written, says that the commissioners will comply with all rules and regulations of the board. And that's certainly an existing rule that the board has. And so if there's a violation and the commission board sees fit, you could bring that to the attention of the offending commissioner.
The second question is, we have a contract with a gentleman that looks for our insurance.
Yes.
Is a contact with him a violation of this code of conduct?
Yes, because the board has passed a specific policy that directs all contacts with our vendors and other agents of the board through the general manager or as directed by the board.
Thank you. Any more questions? Grafton?
I agree with you, President Soa. I feel that it's extremely important so as to minimize the cost to the ratepayers in the future that a law firm that is completely familiar and has documented history in regards to constitutional law, that they take and review this document before it's put forth, because it's a, it's a big hole just left there.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion for a law firm that?
Well, that would be inappropriate for someone such as myself, Commissioner Sterling, to suggest it, but thank you for the offer.
Okay.
Oh, may I ask one other thing, President Soa?
Yes, go ahead.
That someone on page 5, number 7, there's 4 words in dark black print. Who's responsible for this page?
I'm responsible for the entire document.
Would you please take a look and see what the dictionary says that the word B-R-E-E-C-H-E-S refers to? I believe it's a part of an anatomy. And I don't think it's funny, sir.
Well,
You're paid too much money to laugh at stuff like that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, the SDAO conference a couple of months ago that I attended was strongly in favor of organizations such as ours adopting a code of conduct, and the people who presented it, I believe, have the legal expertise to look at this document if we wish to contact them. I don't recall the name off the top of my head, but I know we can get that information.
Mr. President, he has reviewed the document.
They have reviewed it?
Yes.
Okay.
A question, as all SDOs, member organizations, a code of conduct?
I don't believe they all have code of conduct at this point, but as a result of things that have been occurring around the state over the last few years, apparently, they have come to the conclusion that it's wise for all the organizations to develop a code of conduct. I know there's some major ethics issues before the Ethics Commission here in Oregon right now, and probably might not have been there had there been codes of conduct. So that was a big part of their presentation at the last conference.
Thank you. Any member of the public wishing to testify? Saying none, we'll have a roll call. Oh,
That was the first reading.
did we vote on all those in favor of?
It's just the first reading, sir.
Yeah, we don't.
Yes.
No.
All those in favor of reading by title only, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Yes, we read by title only.
We're okay.
Okay. This will be the legal amendment. Item number 6, employment agreement for the general manager. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move the CRW Board of Commissioners approve modification number 2 to the general manager's contract extension.
Second?
Any comments? Questions? Ken?
For the public's benefit, in case they don't happen to have the agenda in front of them, this is a 6-month extension of the general manager's contract. Tongue-tied. We anticipate, based on what he's indicated, that that's about as far as he would like to go in terms of his employment with the district. And subsequent, or just before that time, we would expect to have to look for a general manager, and of course, we'll be in the middle of the budget process again. So it seemed reasonable that we have a transition period where he can work with the potentially new general manager and staff and our budget folks as he exits the district. So that's the basic reasoning, from my perspective at least, behind it.
Thank you. Any more questions? Captain Grafton?
Commissioner Humberston, is it your belief and statement at this time that the general manager subsequently will continue to be, if so appointed, the co-manager at the 190 Commission if it's still in existence?
You mean after he leaves us?
Mm-hmm.
That's not my expectation. When he leaves our employment, then he will be done.
Any more questions? Any member of the public wishing to testify? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Holston?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa? Sorry, Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
It's too easy. Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
Item number 7, acknowledgement of the ORS 190 agreement to meet the labor relations conditions.
Mr. Chairman, I move to,
Motion.
excuse me, I move to remove the conditions regarding labor relations that were stipulated when the ORS 190 was approved and move forward with the implementation of the agreement.
Second.
Motion made in second. Anybody have any questions or comments? Right.
And where is the document at that Mr. Bullard wrote to the board with his recommendations specifically in regards to this issue? Have either of the commissioners received this?
No.
Are you withholding it, Mr. Moore?
I haven't been, Mr. Chairman, I've been advised by council not to release that document.
Which council is that, Mr. Sola?
The Bullet Law Firm that wrote it.
So the ratepayers are not having to pay them anything, is that correct?
That is not what I said, that is incorrect.
So the ratepayers are having to pay the Bullard Law Firm their hard-earned money, so they don't have the document that they are paying for.
The CRW has the legal advice that the Bullet Law Firm has provided to the organization, and they have requested that the contents of that be treated as a privileged document. That is not the same as saying that the information is not available. If the board wanted to have discussion about the contents of that document, it would be my recommendation that we would go into executive session and have a discussion of that document.
Well, Mr. So, or President So, I so move that this document take and be presented to the executive in an executive session and discussed. My concern is the amount of dollars that our ratepayers are having to expend outside of trying to get our infrastructure repaired and brought up to snuff. And where's this money being spent at? I mean, this document, I'm sure they have had to pay thousands of dollars for it, for this person's opinion. I mean, we need to know, they need to know where it's at and what's going on. This 190 is going to LUBA and subsequently to the appellate court. And it's a major issue in regards to it. The ratepayers deserve, they need to know where their money is going. Excuse me, sir.
Thank you. We'll schedule an executive session soon to talk about releasing this document. Any more comment? Members of the public?
Chairman Soa, I thank you for taking the time to take this process through your executive committee for review by the board prior to just blindly accepting a
opinion by a law firm on this matter, because you folks are the ones that, with your general manager, have to deal with labor concerns. I would make sure that everything was written the way you all felt it should be. And so I would like to express a concern, though, that we did not know, I was having a hard time deciphering the language that was in question. And I was wondering if you could put on the record the language that you're questioning about removing from the 190 agreement, so that folks that have not been with this process all along could have an idea of what it is that you are looking at removing from that 190 agreement, from this meeting minutes.
Mr. Moore, could you clarify that?
Yes, I can.
And try not to cover anything that's supposed to be mentioned in the executive session.
What the legal opinion is that there are issues or potential issues as we join forces with Sunrise Water as it relates to labor relations. And so it is an advisory opinion of those things that our board needs to consider as we move forward in that process. And because of the litigation surrounding the formation of the 190, to publish that document in the middle of this process, council has advised was very premature and could be disruptive to the process as we move forward. So it is not anything taken out of the 190 document. It is merely guidance for management and the board of the new organization in how we should proceed.
Any more comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberstone,
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil,
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling,
No.
Commissioner Soa.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1.
But just to make it clear, we will schedule an executive session to talk about that further. Item number 8. Can we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize CRW staff to expend $1,000 to help with the startup costs related to the ORS 190 agreement.
Second.
Any question or comment? Grassy.
I'd like for Commissioner Humberston to explain, and if he has the capacity to define what an asset is or assets are in regards to the ratepayers and what they pay here to Clackamas River Water. Please explain your definition or what you believe an asset or assets are defined as.
I'll be happy to sit down with you at some other time, and we can discuss what my opinion of what an asset is at that time, but I don't think this is the appropriate time to discuss my opinion of what an asset is.
President Soa, do you have an opinion or a definition of what Clackamas River Water ratepayers' assets or assets are?
No, I don't have a legal opinion, but I think it covers everything that Clackamas River Water has control over.
And when they pay their bill each month and send their cash in here, that's considered an asset.
Yes.
I agree with you also too. Commissioner McNeil, are you of a mind, as President Soa and Commissioner Sterling is, that an asset or assets, as a reasonable man would interpret, of the ratepayers of Clackamas River Water is in fact their monies that they pay for their bills?
I agree. Yeah.
Why should we then subsequently, according to the publication that Mr. Moore placed in the last month's bill or this month's bill, transfer any assets? He stated quite clearly in the first bullet that no assets are going to be transferred. And now this evening, here it is, Humberston and Moore want to have their assets transferred in complete contradiction to what they wrote in the bill.
Thank you for your comment. My ruling is that we're not transferring assets, we're allowing the staff to expend monies to begin the 190 agreement.
I have one comment, if I could. I think, because this is new, I think it's important that if we can, I don't see $1,000 being that big deal here, but in the spirit of trying to keep as much transparency as we can, if we can get an itemization of, the kinds of things that we expect to have to help share in the cost, I think that helps people understand. And then we'll let the ratepayers decide what assets are and not what assets are. And
Mr. Moore?
Yes, I think it is appropriate to at least talk about where this dollar amount came from and what it's going to be used for. We did have a joint meeting with Sunrise Water Authority that was an organizing meeting for the ORS 190, where a name was determined and the beginnings of an organization process occurred. As part of that beginning of an organization process, there are filing fees that have to be with the Secretary of State and other minor expenditures. And so the board, during that meeting, the board of the commission asked each entity to contribute $1,000 for those startup costs. And that's what's being reflected here. And because that organization will be another government agency, there will be a full accounting of those monies as they are expended within that organization, and would also be reflected back to CRW as a participating member.
A question then is this giving the new commission authority to get $1,000 from us, or is this allow our staff to pay some bills?
What this does is allow CRW staff to forward these funds to the new commission. And then that new commission would have to account for how those funds are expended. These are startup costs.
I think, Larry, I guess my comment was, some people understand when you're starting something new, whether it be a business or a charitable organization or anything like that, there are costs for registering and, and printing letterhead and doing those, kind of administrative like things that we do. And I think as long as we account for the expenditures for our part of this, then we've provided as much transparency as we can. And I don't have any trouble with that. But I think there's a lot of people who've never done this that don't have any idea. They may say, oh yeah, there they go, spending $1,000 and we don't have any idea where it's gonna go. I'm fine with it. I know exactly what it's gonna cost, and I think $1,000 is pretty darn cheap. I mean, when I voted for the 190, I knew that there were going to be costs. But there are people that don't know that and may not understand that there are reasonable startup costs, and it's not like we're gonna go out and throw a party and have them, use the money to go do that. I think because we have to fund these kind of things, we watch very carefully where the money is spent. And if we don't like an expenditure, we need to make sure that they understand that we don't want to see it happen again. So that's why I'm at.
But my question to you is, does this allow somebody else besides our staff to take our money and spend it?
Yes.
But not without the authorization of this board. This board has to allocate that $1,000. The Sunrise Water Authority Board would have to authorize matching funds, if I understand what their process is. And then the 190 board will have the right then to expend that fund, those funds, for administrative costs, and we will account for them. So that both, the constituents of both boards will know how and where the money was spent.
And that 190 board is comprised of at least 3 CRW commissioners.
Say that again.
The 190 board is comprised of at least three CRW commissioners, which would have oversight on how these monies are expended.
So it's, for example, one that you would know about, CCOM, for instance, is a 190 organization in Clackamas County, administered by the county, but funded by all of the participating districts, law enforcement and fire. And so all of those entities have to pay ratepayer dollars or property tax dollars to the county to cover the costs to do those administrative functions. So it's not like it's something that's unusual. Anytime you have a 190 agreement where 2 entities share in some common function, that's because they don't have it. The 190 group that we have here doesn't have its own tax base. There is no tax base for that group. They have no, they don't have, we're the only authority that can give them the money, along with the agreement that we have with Sunrise Water Authority. And it's, the way I understand it from my reading, it's an equal share.
Right.
A question. Does this motion amend our budget that we approved last year so that we have funds available for doing that?
I don't believe that we'll have to amend our budget to pay these funds. I do believe that we will, at some point in the spring, be looking at where we are financially. But I'm sure that these dollars won't be the reason why, if we would need to adjust, would be the reason why we would be asking the board to allow us to reallocate monies.
So begs the question, where do you plan on finding the money for this expenditure?
This would be a materials and services intergovernment transfer.
Okay.
Members of the public wish to testify, come forward.
Chairman, so I appreciate again this discussion. However, I think that we got into a broader question from Commissioner Sterling's question to you three about assets. I think perhaps what he was struggling to get a firmer answer from you is the fixed assets of CRW, not just the general assets, because I'm sure he's aware that we spend quite a bit of money every year to organizations that we belong with. The consortium, the Clackamas River Water Providers, those particular groups of cooperating entities take more than $1,000 a year from us. Several, I think the last time I served on the consortium, the amount was $15,000 a year, I think, for the consortium.
That's the new budget.
And those items are already allocated somewhere within our budget. I know we discussed those on the budget committee last year and approved those amounts of money. So I would assume that that would be somewhat, perhaps where some of this money would come from, would be in that general area as well. But I think that perhaps Commissioner Sterling needs to be given a clearer understanding of the word asset and in an organization. The fixed assets of this organization are not being transferred to anyone. They stay CRW's, what I've read. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I read. And the other assets that come in, you know, your capital, et cetera, that comes in through billing, Those are there to spend for the benefit of the organization. And it sounds to me that $1,000 to get to start up an organization that has been worked on by this organization for well over 5 years is a minimal amount. When we spend that much money alone sending our commissioners to an SDAO conference. So I heartily support this type of expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you. Grafton?
You know, first off, CCOM is a volunteer organization. The police departments that belong to it went and joined it on a voluntary basis so that they could minimize their cities' cost. And it's been there for probably close to 35 years or so. But the assets that are now fixed belong to the ratepayers, our constituents. And the assets that the ratepayers send each and every month to the accounting department to pay for their water bill are not two separate entities. You might think that you can get by and create a separate definition, but they are the assets. And they are being transferred this evening by this board as a beginning. And if you think $1,000 is it, before this thing is over with and it comes out of the appellate court, it'll be touching $1 million easily.
Anyone
Thank
else
you,
on
Mr.
the public?
President.
Call
I'd
the
like to
question.
make a statement that I could have supported this motion if we had bills before us and we would approve those bills to be paid. But being this giving another organization part of our assets, I can't support it. So
Mr. Chairman?
I will rule that the motion fails for a majority vote. We didn't ask for public comment. We can go on now to consent agenda. Hold your comment until we'll have another one down here.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
President, so are we assuming that we have yes votes and no votes? Is that your assumption? It just fails in general?
Did you just want to
Right.
vote and then put
Okay, without a
formality?
vote?
I think we should take.
Without a vote?
You need to take the vote, Larry. And then it'll fail for,
Pardon?
just take the vote and then it'll fail for.
I don't think that's according to Robert's Rules of Order.
Okay, not sure.
If you want to,
We have a motion on
we'll have a roll call vote.
Yeah,
All
there's a
those in
motion.
favor say aye, all opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberstone, how
Aye.
do you vote? Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Sola?
No.
Motion does fail 2-2. Or for the lack of a majority.
Carol?
The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I don't have a presentation for that, just waiting for a motion from the board.
Thank you. Anyone have a question about the consent agenda? Thank you. We'll go on then to the next item, which is informational reports, financial report.
Are you going to vote on the
We-
consent agenda?
We do have to,
Typically, we vote on
Yeah,
the
you have to
consent
approve the
agenda.
consent agenda.
All those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Consent agenda is approved. Informational report.
Okay, thank you. Now, ready to talk about financial reports. Here's our accounts receivable aging through December 31st, 2013. We sent bills to our customers on December 31st. We have a total balance of $1.1 million. The ending balance is less than the October balance, and that's standard because the December bills typically are a lower dollar amount than the October bills. And the balance is $125,000 greater than it was this time last year. So we often like to compare year to year. That's primarily due to the rate increase that was effective starting with the June bills, but there was also a little bit higher consumption in this cycle. In our cash and investment position, again, through December 31st, 2013, we have $8.7 million in working capital and reserves at this time. It's down a little bit from November, but again, that's because December is the billing month, so we collected most of the October activity in November. We did transfer $500,000 from the general checking account to the local government investment pool. May have done that a little prematurely. We are expecting a large bill on the emergency generator project, but I think the receipts on the current bills will come in sufficiently to cover that. So this slide shows the revenue comparison through the month of November, looking over the past 5 years. And, you know, as usual, our water revenue is our largest part of our revenue. The other amounts are fairly small. And here's a comparison of our expenditures with prior years, again, looking back at the last 5 years. And this is broken out in our appropriations categories of personnel services, materials and services, and capital outlay costs. And then this chart will show you basically dollar-to-dollar comparisons and where we are within the budget. So for our revenue, we're at about 47%. Through the month of November, we're at 41.67% of the budget. So the revenues are tracking a little ahead. We like to see that, again, because our summer bills are the higher bills. And so this kind of makes sure that we're on track to meet our targets for the year. Personnel services, materials and services, and capital outlay are all below the 41.67, so we're moving along at pretty good pace. And I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Any questions?
None.
Comments? Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Management report.
Mr. Chair, tab 10 is the management report. There are several articles that I have attached for the board as general information items. They're listed on page 1 of 5 of the management report. As you know, we've been talking about the 190. As I indicated a little bit earlier, both boards met on December 18th and began organizing and creating a name, which is the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission. The board also, the commission board, also voted to meet monthly with meetings occurring on the second Monday of each month, and that they would alternate the meeting locations between CRW and Sunrise Water. And the board commission also elected officers. For the public who did not participate, the commission board is made up of Ken Humberston, Ron Blake, Hugh Kalani, Deanna Weiss, Larry Soa, and Ernie Plant. The officers of the new commission are Ken Humberston, president, who's CRW's representative, Ron Blake, the vice president from Sunrise, Hugh Kalani, secretary from CRW, Deanna Weiss, treasurer from Sunrise. The business of the board instructed staff to move forward with organizing the commission, making sure that the appropriate filings occurred in order to to make the body legal, and as we've discussed already, requesting that each sponsoring organization ante up $1,000 as seed funds to fund the formation activities. And that was on the agenda today, which the board has already addressed, so we'll move forward. The next item that I have is the Court of Appeals has dismissed the appeal of Judge Jones' decision, who's the Clackamas County judge. And so the appointments of Commissioners Kalani, Soa, and Humberston stand as ruled. And a copy of that is in your packets under A1 if you'd like to read through that. We've also been notified by Oregon City and South Fork Water Board that they intend to file a LUBA action, which is the Land Use Board of Appeals. The advice that we received thus far is that by our councils is that they don't believe that this is a LUBA action, but nonetheless it's moving forward. We also know that one of the things that we've been trying to do to address some of the concerns about legal expenses is to meet with the leadership of Oregon City, and we being Sunrise Water Authority representatives and CRW, in order to see if we can at least resolve some of the issues, or at least understand what Oregon City and South Fork believe the issues are in lieu of litigation. And so we have made those overtures. A date has been set for that meeting, which I believe is the 18th of 18th or 19th of 16th of January, and the meeting will occur. I just was notified of that today, late, that the meeting would occur. We have a side issue that has surfaced, and that is the City of Oregon City has decided that it's going to implement what amounts to franchise fees for utilities. And we were not notified of that, nor was Wes notified, which is what the rules require prior to adoption, but nonetheless, Oregon City adopted the fees anyway. There is a case that's pending, I believe, at Cottage Grove, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's Talent or Phoenix.
Yeah, what?
Talent or Phoenix?
Yeah, yeah. That where this issue is being challenged, and I think it's at the Court of Appeals, as I recall. And so, you know, our position obviously is a fee is a fee is a fee, especially as it involves public agencies. And so you have an issue of one public agency charging fees to another. The other concern that we have is a lot of the infrastructure that resides within Oregon City is co-owned by CRW at Oregon City. And so the question is, would those fees apply for those purposes as well? The other issue is, does Oregon City intend to charge fees for its own utility, i.e. South Fork? And how would they do that in terms of this? We have calculated the impact of this fee to be about $15,000 a year. Of course, those are unbudgeted funds. And since the ordinance has already been passed, one of the things that we have been asked to do by council is to submit a letter, and we have a 60-day period in which to do so, to Oregon City, and I have forwarded to the president a copy of that letter for his review and signature. Yes.
I have a question. Isn't South Fork a 190 agreement between West Lynn and Oregon?
Yes.
Similar to, exactly the same as what we have now
Yeah.
with Sunrise Water Authority and CRW.
The ownership of it, of course, is 50% West Lynn, the city, and 50% Oregon City.
I know exactly what it is. I just wanted to point out that it's also a 190 agreement, and they spend funds exactly the same way, and
As
no
is
different
in-
than what we've been.
As is in CCWC.
Yeah, I know. It's just a very common practice.
So we're not sure where this will lead, but we're at least hoping that the letter that we send at least, first of all, expresses our concerns, and at least puts them on notice that this is something that we're objecting to. So I just wanted to mention that for the board, because this is something that we'd like to get off and get sent to them.
So my point here was, they pretty well, from the way I look at this, they have to charge themselves through,
That would be my belief.
and the loser there is West Lynn,
Mhm.
not Oregon City. I think they'll really enjoy that.
Right. Yeah. There's a
Just
lot.
going, oh my goodness, I don't think they thought through this whole thing.
Well, in our point of view is that, one, they haven't thought it through, they haven't really, at least as best we can tell, communicated their intentions and how they plan to administer this, other than we know what they've said is that the minimum fee, what is it, 6% on our gross receipts that reside within their area, with a minimum charge of $15,000. And so, I mean, there's more details in there, but that's kind of the essence of what's going on here.
So
And you will find, Mr. or Commissioner McNeil, you will find West Lynn following the same pattern. They're not going to be the so-so child left out. They will be following the same pattern that Oregon City is. They're working together in regards to it.
It seems as if and I think Commissioner Sterling is correct, it seems like most of the cities are looking at this. Remember, this was an issue that surfaced in our discussion with Happy Valley, and we basically, part of that agreement says, let's hold off on this until we see which direction the court is going to take on this position.
Because when the Tri-City Water Treatment Agreement was ratified by the three cities, the spirit of this had none of this in it.
That's correct.
And it is going to turn all of those previous handshake agreements upside down. That still doesn't bode well for the ratepayers.
Right. At least that's our position.
Yeah.
My question is, who do we buy water from for south part of the area?
Southfield.
We buy it from South Fork, not
Yes.
Oregon City.
Right. Which is another thing, one could argue that we're paying double under this scenario. Because embedded in the fees is cost. And the other
Do
concern
they
that,
realize that we just have so much money to buy water, and that if they charge us some fees, we'll have to buy less water?
well, one of the things we've even talked about is the possibility of what happens if the special districts or the utilities choose not to provide service in those areas as a result of it. You know, that's another discussion point. I just don't think that, this is my personal opinion, that this has been talked through. But I do see a pattern where cities are away from taxes and into fees,
Yeah, I know.
pretty
It's
much in the same way that banks are, you know.
Yeah.
it's-
another way to generate revenue
Right.
without having to go to the ratepayers.
Right. So, the next item I have in my report is the continuity of operations plan. We've had the tabletop exercise. We identified in that process additional items that we need to work on as a group. and we are compiling that information as we speak, and we will then begin action plans and any budget considerations that might be forthcoming as a result of moving to the next level.
Are you gonna share the coop with the board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I think we can get it as an agenda. It may be a better item for a work session,
Whichever.
but, you know, but I'll talk with the president and
I just
secretary.
have heartburn with paying for coops that are worthless.
Yeah.
I do, I'm tired of that. I think there are thousands of those in this area that are absolutely a waste of ratepayer dollars. They are untested, they are unreasonable, they flat won't work, and consultants love it.
We will share.
Thank you.
President Zoll?
Yeah.
As much of our smaller communities, although Gladstone has it also too, they have volunteers that agree to be trained and work on their fire departments. I was wondering if it might be an appropriate opportunity to place in the water bill an opportunity for volunteers in our ratepayers, if they would like to, at a future date, be educated and be on call during a period of time to yet to be determined, so that it's not simply our staff that are having to take and bear the brunt of being on call in order to do this. It seems to work quite well with the fire department, so perhaps with this emergency situation, this coop plan, it might also be.
That's something we'll have to consider. Go ahead.
Okay.
Are you done?
No, I have a few more.
Okay.
Sorry. We had a work session in December where the rate consultants returned and provided the commissioners an opportunity to discuss kind of the formation of rates and distribution of monies, and other than the CIP activity that we have, its staff, unless the board directs otherwise, position that we probably are through with the consultants for that aspect of work. So I think that we're ready to move on. The other thing, as you know, in December we had a spout of a lot of bad weather, and we've had work, but we did do some work on Bell Avenue. I think engineering group told you, what was it, one meeting ago, about some of the issues that we have on Bell Avenue with trying to locate water lines there, and item number 6 in the general manager report kind of gives you an update on what's being planned. We continue to experience main breaks within our service area. Although the 3 that we experienced were not as radical as the other ones that we've had. We had the one break on Greenview, which was repaired live without the issuance of a boil notice. We had the break on Thiessen, which included a boil notice, but no additional action was required. And then we had a leak with the OD Steel on Lammer Road, which did not require boil notice. The other item that we have under number 8, if you look under tabs A3 through A5, we have been allocated through, is it a FEMA grant done?
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Lee.
The trailer.
Oh, the water treatment trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a UASC grant.
Yeah, it's a UASC grant, and what that is an emergency water treatment facility that is portable, that our staff was very instrumental, first of all, in terms of acquiring the funds for that, and also instrumental in assembly of the train. It came as and therefore it needed to be assembled. And you see the pictures that we put in there that kind of give you an idea of what it is and what it looks like. And this is also another item that I think that at some time in the very near future, that it might behoove the board, maybe we could set it up in the parking lot here or something, for you to be able to look at it and see how it works, because it is a community asset. And I think that the board probably would be advised to see it and see how it works. And I think it services what? What's the capacity on it?
30,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, so that.
We do it in the summer when the weather's warm too, so most people get wet.
If you give away water at the county fairs. And I think you also have some portable packs as well, so that are a lot smaller, as I recall. The other thing that we've been working on is that the federal law is changing on a lot of the materials that we use in the maintenance of our system. And one of the things that's come up out of the federal government is this whole no lead rule. And so, as you know, a lot of our components have, and so we were fortunate to be able to get all of those dispersed before the January 1st deadline. So we are now compliant with the federal requirements. And the last item that I have, again, on December 8th, we begin to have some icing on our intake streams. That is something that normally happens when the weather gets extremely cold. We're fortunate in that we have a reverse thrust system on our intakes that we can shake that stuff loose. I think a couple of years ago, we had the same event that we had to actually hire divers, but this year we were able to avoid that.
So was that exacerbated because of the low level of the river?
That part I don't know. I just know that it was temperature related.
None?
I'm not, no, I don't, I can't answer it either.
Okay, I was just wondering why that.
Is it worth a short video so that our ratepayers can see it? Can you imagine our children seeing if there's a big reverse thrust of the water coming out on the ice and everything?
We would have to, Commissioner Sterling, we would have to do that when we had actual divers down below.
Oh, you can't just turn a valve and turn the water the other way?
It's at the bottom of the river is where our intakes are, and so
Oh.
it is something to think about though, in terms of when we're down there, because when we're doing maintenance, I think they do take pictures down there, so we could probably, I don't know from a safety point of view if
They wouldn't do it while they're running the backwash
Yeah.
system. And on the airburst. That'll not be
I
safe.
didn't understand them, I didn't understand the intake was at the bottom of the river. The only thing I see is from the top side. I figured that was plugging up with ice. But
Yeah, no, it's the bottom
it
down.
really was cold water.
And the water is
Freezes
colder down
below.
lower as you go,
Yeah.
and so it's,
Thank you.
okay, that completes my report.
Thank you. Any public comment at this point? Seeing none, go on to commissioner business.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
from the RWPC meeting last night, I learned that there has been an exemption on the lead issue with fire hydrants. So fire hydrants will not have to be changed out. That was effective the first of this year, I believe. And on another note, the staff that attended the 190 organizational meeting were instructed to complete all filings and required documents, and then advise the commission board once that had been done. And it was informally agreed that each agency would contribute $1,000 as seed funds to actually get that activity done. So in that vein, I would like to place a motion on the floor to reconsider item number 8. So would there be a second to that motion?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to revisit number 8 and have a new vote. Do we have any comments?
I think President Soa, your presentation, brief dissertation was very clear, very concise, very pro-ratepayer, very looking to the future, trying to stay focused on the repairs of our infrastructure and our engineering. I see no reason as to why there should be another vote. It was quite clear.
Keep complimenting me, I may change my vote.
Well, you know, we do live in America.
Well, the obviously, of the 190 is cost savings for both districts, and we believe in the long run that that's exactly what will occur, which will be beneficial to the ratepayers of both districts. That was the point, the primary point of the legislation. I have no other comment.
Well, I guess my comment is, as a board, we approve formation of the 190 group. And by doing so, we have a responsibility to provide at least a pittance of money to get it started so that we can evaluate whether the function of that 190 agreement is of benefit to CRW or not. And if we never get it out of the box, we'll never know. Ever, no. And I don't see $1,000 to get this thing filed and put some wheels under it is gonna make a difference to the ratepayers one way or the other, I think.
It's a substantial difference, sir. I beg to differ with you because
And that's fine.
for some reason or another, it appears that you're simply skimming over the very fact that South Fork and Oregon City are taking this to Luba. And I urge you, sir, I have sent you documentation in a very quiet, polite manner. This has occurred before. I don't know if Cable Houston is simply going to photostat the documents that they submitted on CRW's behalf in 05, 06, 07, where it was rejected before. I mean, you know, if there should be no further funds put forward to this 190 until this situation is taken care of through LUBA and the appellate court. Any dollar spent now is going against the ratepayers. In a short few months, Commissioner McNeil, you're going to be voting to raise the rates on the ratepayers, instead of figuring out a way to try to conserve and hold it back until the recession is over with and these poor folks have got some money. You've got to remember, a lot of our people in our county here are not getting any more unemployment money. So you might just think that it's less than a gallon of milk or something like that, but when you have a family that is going to be not receiving any additional unemployment funds, to sit here and then tell everybody, well, we're going to have to raise our rates. That's insane. Excuse me, you can sue me if you feel I have offended you.
Not at all, you're entitled to whatever you want to say.
Yes, it is my constitutional right, especially since I have to speak for the constituents that voted for me to be here.
Let's try to keep our comments coming through the chair, please.
The question on this, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, go ahead. The motion was to reconsider.
We'll now have a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Soa?
No.
Motion passed.
Okay.
Under Commissioner reports, be sure and get your expenditure reports in on time, and so you can get reimbursed. With that, we're going to adjourn the meeting.